Thank you. Before I start, can people just thank this beautiful woman, Ellen, for putting this together? She and I were getting into it backstage, a little too inspiring for both of our own good, so we're both kind of moved right now. Okay. I want to talk to you about Do a Day. It's how I've changed my life, and it's how I've helped others to do the same. But before I do that, I need to ask you a question. But seeing how many high schoolers there are here, I need to ask some of you a question. For those of you who are past high school, how many of you wish you were at your high school weight? All right, there's some hands going up. I know it's a younger audience, but there's quite a few hands. Okay. I don't, because if I was at my high school weight, I would weigh 100 pounds more than I do right now. That's right, I was the fat kid, and I'm the one in the dark suit, if you're not sure. That's that's my mother. I wasn't obese because I ate too much, although I did eat way too much. I was obese because my parents got divorced when I was really little, and kids have this one basic need, and it's just to feel loved and secure and safe and like everything's going to be okay, because they can't do that for themselves. And I didn't feel that, because my whole world was coming apart. And there were 3 other kids, and my parents were busy with the divorce, so they couldn't be there for me in that way. And I certainly didn't understand the emotions myself to know to ask about it. So I turned to food to fill that hole. And this anxiety really got the best of me, and I can tell you from firsthand research, extensive firsthand research, food does not cure anxiety. It's quite the opposite. So I put on a lot of weight, and luckily I was able to lose it in high school thanks to the help of this amazing guy who ran the PE program in my high school. He taught me a different relationship with diet and exercise, and I grabbed hold of it. What I didn't do is grab hold of why I was obese in the first place and deal with that underlying cause of my anxiety. So despite all the exercising and all the better eating, eventually the anxiety won out, and I ended up putting on about half the weight. Like a lot of people who lose weight go through that. You put back on quite a bit of it. So I put on about 45 pounds after losing 100. Now, I never looked obese again. I just looked American, right? I looked like everybody else. No one would have looked at me and been like, oh, there's that fat guy. It's just like, oh, it's Bryan. He's like all of us. Not only was I not healthy, though, most importantly, I was not happy. And actually, the anxiety was getting worse and worse because now I had all these adult-level responsibilities layered on top of it. So I wasn't dealing with, that driving force that led me to get back to this stage of obesity. And frankly, I was only 45 pounds overweight because I happened to stop it halfway through. I would have clearly gone right back to where I was. And I stopped it in 2011 when I woke up. But that's a misnomer. I didn't wake up. I was forced to, because I nearly lost everything. So that woman there, that's my wife, and that's our son. It's a little before that point in 2011. But in that summer, I should preface this by saying she is still alive, and you'll understand why I need to say that. That summer, she was on her deathbed. She was wasting away, chronically ill. No one knew what was going on. No one could do anything for her. And it didn't look like she was going to survive the summer. And I get a call on June 30th, 2011, from her primary care doctor to say, hey, we don't really know what's going on. We can't do anything. I'm going on vacation. I'll check in 6 weeks. And I said, doctor, she's losing 2 pounds a day. She's barely 100 pounds, can't really get out of bed. Do the math. She will not be here in 6 weeks. And from the other end of the phone, I heard, oh, okay, we'll take her to the ER if you need to. And he hung up. So I had to pull myself together and walk back into our bedroom. And my wife was in bed, and my son was at the foot of the bed, standing there, looking at his mom, suffering. And he turned and looked at me. And when his eyes caught me, that was the moment that I woke up. Because in his eyes, I saw something that made me stop dead in my tracks and say, in my head, not out loud, because there was a child there, what are you doing? This poor woman is suffering, and she's all alone in that suffering. And you're so caught up in your anxiety about all the things that are going wrong and all the things you have to constantly do and how it's only going to get worse, and what if she's not here, and then you're all alone, and how are you supposed to work and take care of this kid, and all of it. You're so caught up in all that, you can't even be there for her. And I don't mean doing things, but I mean hearing her, be supportive, Be the husband she actually needs if she's going to have a chance to survive. You're not doing any of that. And then I looked at my son. Look, if I had issues coming out of my parents' divorce, definitely losing your mother when you're 2 years old, when that process happens right in front of your eyes, that's way more definitional. And if that amazing little boy is going to have any shot at happiness for the rest of his life with only one parent, it's not going to be with a parent like I was. He deserves better. He needs better. But there was a third thing that hit me, and this is the first time I'd ever felt this in my entire life, is I actually deserve better, and I need better. See, I always thought that this is just my life. I'm going to suffer. I'm going to have things I have to do. I'm going to have all this responsibility, and no one else can do it because it's all falling apart, and I'm the only one who can stop it. I mean, it's exactly the story that came from my childhood and followed me through all the years that I bought into and just accepted. I took it for granted as the only fact. Until this moment. Because I realized actually I want better, I deserve better, and this was crazy different. I was actually capable of achieving better. Remember, I was the fat kid. I was lazy. I was no good. I sucked at sports. I would get short of breath. I mean, all of it. All of a sudden I felt like, no, I'm fully capable of achieving what I wish I had. This felt really different. So I went to bed that night, and when I woke up the next morning, I still had the feeling. Only it was actually stronger. And I decided, look, you can recognize that this thing can fade away if you let it, or you can grab hold of it, because this is a lifeline, and you only get one shot to grab those things. So that's what I decided to do. And what I started with was recognizing what was so different about this feeling. 4 things became really clear to me. The first, in what I call understanding my true motivation or my purpose, and we're hearing a lot about that today, is this thing was deep within me. So when I lost weight the first time, it was about other people, kids in my school, viewing me as the fat kid. And I didn't want that. That's why I lost weight that first time around. But then I went to college and nobody knew me. So guess what? My motivation vanished. Because I let the motivation exist outside of me. What I'm talking about now, about my life and my role as a father and my love for my son and my wife and how she needs me to survive and my love for myself, that's deep inside of me. The second really important thing is enduring. So when I went to college, no one knew me as a fat kid. Motivation over. It had an end date. You hear about people who lose weight for their wedding or their high school reunion. I just had one of mine last spring. And you see all these people get in shape for it, or beach season. Or what about someone who spends frivolously and then they need to buy a house, so they start controlling their spending and they save up some money? Well, what happens once they save the money and buy the house? If your motivation has an end date, guess what? It doesn't keep motivating you. So you have to find one that actually is going to endure every situation and time. Next is profound. As you guys can see from how I'm talking about it on stage, my motivation's pretty profound. Even to this day, 7 years later, I have to pause when I talk about it. And I've talked about it, as Ellen said, over 100 times on all these podcasts and everything. I've written a book about it, and it still brings me to the point of nearly tears. It can still bring me to my knees if I let it. That's really profound. Tied to that, and I call this one out specifically, is non-material. I'm not talking about stuff and things. I'm talking about values, right? It's what's deep within you, not about buying a house, maybe about creating a home for your family, but not the bricks and the glass and the grandeur of having a big house that stands out against your neighbors or something. It's the value side of it. That's what was so different in my true motivation. Now, finding the motivation is not good enough, but that's good enough to keep you going. And it's a component in this complete structure that I kind of talk about as building a house of a successful life. And I want to walk you through that. There are 4 key pieces of true motivation. There's 4 things that you have to do to actually transform your life. The first is when you build a house, you don't just build it anywhere. You have to find strong, stable, solid ground, right? You don't build a new house on quicksand because it's not going to stand up. The strong ground is self-love, and that's really important. Remember I said I actually felt like I deserved a better life and I was capable of it. If you don't think you deserve better, and even if you think you deserve it, if you don't think you could achieve it even if you tried, guess what? You won't. Not with that attitude. So we have to get to a place where we actually love ourselves enough to allow for ourselves to have better. And that's really hard in this society. We're really self-deprecating. We get into competitions with people about who had more work last night, who worked later, who slept less, who has more exams today, whatever it might be. Like the winner is the person who's more miserable. How does that make any sense? So I give people a little exercise. I say, stop the butt. So think about the last time you went to someone's house for dinner and you compliment them on the food and they're like, oh, thanks, but I burnt the chicken. No, it's actually just pronounced thanks. As soon as that word but forms in your head, when there's something good about you out there, from someone else or from yourself, stop. Just allow for the good to be. The more you do it, the more you reinforce self-love. So that's the first step. The second is to find your why. That's that true motivation I was just talking about. It's that deep, enduring, profound, non-material thing that will power you through all of the tough moments. I have a number of questions that I give to people I work with, but the one I'd sum it up with is, what will you always care about no matter what else is happening? And what I'd say is whatever answer you come to is probably wrong. And it's not totally wrong, it's too surface level. You have to ask yourself, why? Keep pushing deeper and deeper and deeper until you get down to that bottom level. And that can take time, and that might scare some people, but it's okay. You know, for me, it started with just being about my son. And I wrote my book and I put it out and I was talking about my son and my wife. And in the year since my book came out, I've actually discovered it's more than just that. I discovered all this stuff about me that I told you about. Even after 6 years in writing a book and speaking on it, I still didn't know. That's okay. It's a journey. You figure this stuff out as time goes on. The next is to set your intention. That's your ultimate goal of the things you want to be better in your life. So when I had 100 pounds to lose, the goal was not 10, it was 100. And that's super daunting. It's a lot, but that's okay. That's where I'm trying to get to. And I got time. So you set the real goal of that ultimate place you want to be. Everything else is a step along the journey. And the last thing, especially in the face of daunting goals, is do a day. That's the way that I execute against those goals every day. And I want to break down the two key words in there, do and day. Let's start with the second one, though. I guess it's the third word. So day is really about the here and now. See, we live our lives caught between yesterday and tomorrow. Yesterday is all of this judgment and pain and regret. So it's pain from hardships we faced, ways we were mistreated, things people did to us that we didn't like, or it's regret for things we've done, mistakes we've made, actions we've taken that weren't us in our best moment, or maybe it's the pain over losing something, whether it's a loved one or something that you really cared about. And we bring all of that pain, all that negativity, all that dark cloud into today, and it really impacts the decisions we make right now, because we react from a place of pain. It's not a great way to start. Now that's yesterday. At the same time, we have all this tomorrow facing us, and that was my big deal with my anxiety, was all the things that were going to go wrong if I didn't act faster and get on everything. So we live with all this pain and anticipation and anxiety of tomorrow. And as a result, we lose today. But see, the trick is, it's never yesterday, and it's never tomorrow. You have to free yourself from those two things. It's only ever today, right here, right now. Then the do part comes in. Each day, you wake up and you do. It's a verb. You do. You take action in support of your ultimate goals to achieve those intentions that you set, with the power of your motivation underlying all of it, because you believe that you deserve it and you can do better. Do a day. There's a beautiful quote from Buddha that I think sums it up so perfectly. Every morning we're born again. What we do today is what matters most. So with that, I want to remind you, today is a new day. Please go out and do it. Thank you.